Good afternoon and welcome, or good morning in California, where I kind of live, I guess. It is May 13th. It is MSG on Mondays, episode 20. Price of Bitcoin is around 103,000, and the price of strategy is $404. Or should I just update because I know the market has opened now? $406, and the price of Metaplanet is $4.15. And that's interesting because we're gonna talk um, Metaplanet today, because I have with me what I in the tweet, or when I posted it out, called a legendary options trader slash investor, because I can see from listening to that epic episode, that climb that you did with Peter Saturday, that I recommend anyone watch if you have any interest in leverage Bitcoin equities like strategy, Metaplanet, all the new things happening. Search on YouTube for Metaplanet Madness and watch that episode one. Phenomenal episode and work done by Peter and Climb, and really, really, really interesting. If you have any interest in this space at all, highly recommend that. I called you, Climb. I called you a legendary options trader because as you said on the episode, you bought $200,000 worth of strategy call options at the end of 22 and sold them for 30 million, I think it was, last year. Um, that makes you legendary. I think you kind of made it there. Is
Yeah,
that
thanks. Yeah, I mean, there's, a lot of kind of in and out between that. For the most part, it was the easiest way to summarize it is that it was kind of 100x on MicroStrategy. So
yeah. And you have been you've been all about strategy as your main investment until it seemed you got out for the most part back in November near the peak, when everyone else were aping in and buying strike 1,000 for January of this year and all of that. Um, right?
yeah, I mean, kind of. It's a little messy, but I locked in a lot of profits within about a day of that, like $540 high or whatever it was. So I mean that did well. I sold covered calls. I kind of sold against the herd there, and then I shifted largely to a cash position um, a little while ago. I could have played things a lot better recently, so I'm not saying I did great there, but I did okay. I kept most of or a lot of the gains from last year, and then yeah, of course, recently got into Metaplanet about 2 weeks ago or so.
Right. And see, this brings me to one point I want to make about you, because I didn't know what a humble person you are, which is such a beautiful human trait, in my opinion, until I listened to the episode, right? Because I see your tweets, others see your tweets, and it's big numbers. But then when I listened to you earlier today, and when people listen to you now, um, I think it's very easy to realize that you're a humble person that just happens to be putting in the work as a critical thinking investor, and going against the stream when it's the right thing to go against the stream, to buy when there's blood in the street, and to sell when the champagne is popping. And that's why you've done so well. And I just think it's so well deserved. I'm super happy for you, man. And it's so but tell us what how did that progress? You went into mainly cash back in November, and then how did that play out for you? What did you do?
Um, well, so yeah, I mean, I locked in a lot of cash, and then kind of continued, and I think at some point I ended up with a full cash position earlier this year. I was uncertain until recently if Bitcoin would. Late last year, I was fairly confident that things would go sideways for a couple of months, and that's an extra reason why I locked in the profit, because everyone seemed to think things just had to go up, 150K by January, February, March, whatever. And I thought, okay, even if they do a Bitcoin reserve, like things take time. There's going to be pushback. There's going to be other things that come up that get attention. This thing's going to take a little while to play out, like the economy is huge. It's things like this move really, really slowly on the big level. So, but yeah, I moved to cash. I had some good trades. I had some bad trades. I was trading Tesla options. I was trading some MicroStrategy options. All in all, I made money on that, but not very much. I made a bunch, gave about 2/3 of it back, so that wasn't great. And that was on short-term stuff, which I'm not very good at. I just like to do sometimes. And then the CEP craze came about maybe around April 20th or something like that. I got in a little late. I didn't get in the teens, but I flipped that a couple of times, made about $1 million profit in a couple of days. That
Nice.
was going to be, yeah, that was nice. And then that was going to be like, okay, I'm going to dig my heels in this, really see if this makes sense for the long term. If they're trading at, a 2 or 3 MNAV, and then the SPAC goes through and all this, and it seemed like an all-star cast and everything, and it is. So that's kind of what I was eyeing, but I hadn't done the work, and there wasn't history on the company because they hadn't been, it was future promises. So it's like, well, I can trust that these people will be able to do this and execute really well, but it's largely a speed game, and that's something that people don't really understand. It's not just about who's involved or whatever. It's literally day to day. How fast are they rolling this machine? And people don't think about that. Someone in the comments on X one day, I think when I posted about that or something, one guy mentioned Metaplanet, and I mean I knew about Metaplanet, but and I've always thought Dylan was awesome. I didn't know who Simon was at the time, but I just whatever this dude said, just quick sentence or whatever, was just intriguing, and I was like, okay, well, I thought they were still at like a 10 MNAV, and they're at like a 2.5 or 2.8 or whatever when I looked, April 25th, and that day I decided to buy a bunch. I bought like 800,000 that day, and then like Sunday night I couldn't get enough. I had done 2 more days of research at that point, and so I bought from Tokyo. I figured out how to do that as the first international trading I'd ever done. I just never needed to before. And then ever since then, I haven't been able to stop buying. So, because everything I look at, I just get more bullish on it.
So, any I bought Metaplanet. I bought the one, the ODC that is listed on Nasdaq. I mean, I'm not buying, unfortunately, the volume that you are. So like I feel like I'm good with just having that one that is traded in US. I'm a resident of US. Is there any advantage to buying one or the other, or are they like aligned all the time?
A few things there. So one, if people look at the chart, so the MTPLF ticker, the US OTC market ticker, I think got turned on in November. I could be wrong, but it's like late last year is when that ticker started trading. It had almost no volume. I mean, like 50,000 shares, 100,000 shares a day. And for like, something that's trading in the single digits dollars, that's like nothing. So the highs and lows of the day back then are insane. And about 2 weeks before I started buying, volume started picking up. That's another thing that I liked, but it still wasn't very much. It was 150,000 shares, or maybe I think the highest day was like 1.2 million shares or something before I got in. And the day I bought 800,000 shares, it didn't even hit a new high. It was like me trading 800,000 shares, and the rest of the market traded 200,000 or 300,000 shares. And somehow I didn't move the price. I really don't understand how I got that lucky. It stayed in about a 10-cent range, 240 to 250 at the time. So if people try to do analysis on how it's matched with the Tokyo 3350 ticker, it's going to look really messy. And even if you look at like a 5-day or, you know, like the last week, like Monday and Tuesday last week, Tokyo was closed for holidays. And during those days, the US like totally ran the stock up, but then Japan like didn't quite follow, you know, into like the mid $4 range like the US had gone Monday or whatever last Monday. So the ticker, it's the same stock. You know, it's not like these are like not the same. It's not like you don't own shares in the company. They're equivalent. It's just OTC. I think in Fidelity, you can even like maybe transfer between them. I've heard people doing it, but I haven't done it. So I think I could even take my MTPLF and turn it into 3350 if I want.
Right.
But I have pretty much half of each right now, like probably almost exactly half at this point. So it's the same thing. There's a $50 fee on the US OTC per trade. Now it lets you buy more. It was limiting to like $25,000 per trade, I think, and now you can buy like 25,000 shares per trade or something around that. I think as the volume goes up, I think they loosen the
Mhm.
limits there. So yeah, the data is going to look really messy. There might be a slight uh, like slightly higher price, you know, 5 or 10 or even 20 cents on the US market right now because of all the inflows that are coming directly into that ticker. And then you also have like the thing that's kind of like the ATM, the moving strike warrants that the company does to issue new shares. My understanding is that they only do that on the 3350 ticker. So, you know, any selling pressure from new shares happens over there. So there might be a little bit of a difference that tends to be there, but market makers are going to do everything they can to minimize that because there's, you know, if there's
Right.
arbitrage opportunity, they're just going to take advantage of it. So I don't expect it to be an issue at all.
There's a comment here that just came in the chat from Chris Houston that yesterday over 17 million traded on MTPLF, which is the over the counter in US, which seems a lot compared to the history. And I'm pretty sure you can attest to that, right? Because I've seen you do posts on X where I think we're like 6-7 million a day was record, right? We were really
Mm-hmm.
uh, reaching a new high in volume. So you're saying it's essentially it's the same stock. They maybe changed their it's just really determines what are the open market hours where you can buy or sell it, right? That's the difference.
Exactly.
So you're buying on Fidelity also the 3350 or
Yeah, yeah. So I own most of my holdings are on Fidelity, and those, you know, it's pretty evenly split between those two.
right.
So
Well, I so I it really is as we're talking about before going live. I had the same experience as you. Always been a fan of Dylan. I remember, following him all the way back to, from I don't know when I first came across him, 2020, or seeing him at the first Bitcoin conference I went to, which was Miami 2021. Um, and and then the I also heard about, well, MNAV is like 8 or MNAV is um 10 or something like that, and just thinking, yeah, and it's hard to buy it. It's not really here in US, and so just brushed it aside like it seems you did. But then thanks to you putting in the work, it was your tweets that made me aware of Metaplanet. I bought some going back like 10 days, which seems a long time ago now.
mhm.
Friday, previous week, and then I bought some again on the Monday. So I think I paid some of the highest prices for Metaplanet. I think I paid was it 440 or something. Right now we're at what,
Mhm.
4. Yeah, I sniped the top there beautifully, and then we went back down to 3.6. So I'm averaged in at 4 now, but now we're up a little bit today. And thanks to you pointing out that, it's actually possible to trade it now, buy it when you're in US. The MNAV is all of a sudden um much more attractive. And that's something I'm saying with knowing there's two sides to that, but it you're definitely not overpaying when you're getting MNAV 2.5 or 3. Where's it at right now? You know this better.
Um,
3,
I
3.5?
think I think it's like maybe around 3.2 now. I
3
think it
point
closed Japan. Yeah, I think it was like 3.16 with their close, and then we're up a little bit today. So I would guess around 3.2 or 3.25.
and 3.25, just since I bought it, which is I started doing
Hmm.
what is it, 10 days ago. They've had a BDC yield of 25%. Like they've gone from 5,000 to 6,700 Bitcoin. It's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, their Bitcoin holdings have gone up substantially, and then a lot of people don't realize that a 3 MNAV, like it depends on how much you dilute. So it's not as simple as just saying it's twice as good as a 2 MNAV, but it tends to be better than twice as good. I think it would kind of keep accelerating the way the math works. I can't remember, but you need less than half the dilution. So like, well, yeah. Anyway, I have a post where I kind of went through it. It's hard to do on air, but
yeah,
it's more than twice as efficient, and so you can get the yield really easily, and you don't have to buy nearly as much Bitcoin to increase your Bitcoin per share, which is something a lot of people miss as well, just because there's so much less dilution that's needed. So
right. Um, and and well, so you putting in that work, mentioning it that, hey, by the way, the MNAV is actually you're not overpaying here. It's becoming really attractive, and it's possible to buy. Made me, I look more of the work you did, and I realized, well, I actually do want to own some of this. Because that yield is just so way ahead of strategy. It's beyond, like, it's not even funny. It's just really high. And I'm still
mhm.
a strategy shareholder. I love the stock. I love Saylor. He created this whole space. He invented the playbook, and I'm a firm believer in that company. Um, and I think his yield is going to go up. And I want to get into that a little bit later, but it made me take that dive in, and one in particular piece of work that you did, I think, is mind blowing, and I want to bring that up on the screen now. Um, you made this graph. Maybe why don't you take us through this graph?
Yeah. So a lot of people aren't don't look at log charts very often. So I get some hate for using a log chart, but really there's like no way to do it if you don't use a log chart, because they're orders of magnitude apart. These companies. So I mean, MicroStrategy owns almost 100 times as much Bitcoin as Metaplanet at this stage. So you essentially see a lot of these have sort of a speed that they're going at. MicroStrategy has, um, you know, a lower inclination, let's say, on a log chart, um, than Metaplanet. Metaplanet's kind of hidden there a little bit. It blends in similar. I should have fixed the colors a little better, but drawing those trajectories out is pretty telling. And I'm not suggesting at all that Metaplanet's going to overtake uh, MicroStrategy. These things slow down. I think that Metaplanet is going to do a lot more than most people think. They're at a little over 1% of MicroStrategy's holdings right now, and I think they'll get at least to 10%. It could be
Mhm.
25%. So
Mhm.
it could be even a lot higher than that, but 10 to 25%, I think, is a reasonable estimate.
Yeah, well, I mean, log charts don't lie, and that was actually one of the things I wanted to mention before. Now you reminded me again. Thank you for that. That so having watched Dylan just being incredibly smart and doing great work and sharing great knowledge on X for so many years now, and what he has now, together with Simon, because obviously credit to him for getting Dylan on board, and they're doing this together. Um, is 13 months of just impeccable track record. Like no one has the track record of Saylor. Obviously, he started 2020, and really I guess since second half of last year, Sailor accelerated the game and took the playbook a lot further, introduced Strike and Strife and everything. But if you look at that graph of all those small incremental moves, and the growth in their yield, and the trajectory of it on this log chart, that is incredibly bullish.
Yeah, the it's the cleanest that I've been able to find, and I'm not saying that because I haven't had the time to look at 20 different companies that are all competing in the space. So, um, this is just the one that I've done my best to narrow down to what I consider to be the best play, for the next few years anyway. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that not only can you kind of make a line out of that, and a line on a log chart is exponential growth. So they've actually been able to keep up with like almost a perfect exponential curve for 13 months,
Mm-hmm.
and they do incremental buying. It's they don't have they don't just have a few jumps. It's been consistent, and you can see how everything works under the hood because of Japanese regulation. There's a lot of things that they have to be like insanely transparent about. Like, I mean, you can see which days they sold, just like a few days after they do. A lot of times, certainly, I think they do like an end of the month disclosure where they say through Evo Fund, which is like their partnered like third party that issues new shares to the market, essentially. Here's the days we sold, here's the prices we sold at, here's how many shares we sold.
Yep.
Exactly. Like we sold 7 million shares, 4 days ago or whatever it is. So, into, 60 million shares of volume. So, it was like 10% of it was us or whatever.
Yep.
And I mean, that's like, I have mixed feelings about everyone fighting MicroStrategy about like, it's a red day. Are they hitting the ATM? I think it's like I said in the other podcast. I think that's largely bogus because we just have no clue if they're selling, and they have more reason to sell on a green day than a red day. But
Mm.
we just don't know,
Yeah.
and they're not obligated to like, share their tactics, and certainly people would try to take advantage of that to some degree anyway. So it's not necessarily smart for MicroStrategy to do that. Metaplanet has to,
You're
and
it.
I find it a huge benefit.
Climb the ladder, or I don't know if you watched any of my previous shows, and I don't blame you if you haven't. But I should have warned you when we started here. I forgot, my bad. But I have a game here. Whoever says strategy's previous name is it until someone else said it, and you just said it. So anyways, it's a joke.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you're it now. Climb the ladder's it. Anyways, okay, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you, but you needed to know you're it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get it right. It'll take a little while because
Mhm.
normally I just kind of look at things on the computer or on the phone, and so I forget that names change.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you, and I got the cap here from. Let me just. I'll pull this back. So friend of mine made that. Who bought strategy after I told him to buy strategy, and he knew my show, and he's printing stuff, and he made this for me in the period of strategy changing the name to strategy, and gave me this after they changed the name. But I kind of like it because now it's like an OG merch, right? With the previous
Mhm.
name. Anyways,
That's funny.
yeah. So yeah. What did I interrupt you? Maybe in a good point there. I'm
No,
sorry.
I think you're good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Um,
So yeah, I'm because I'm kind of I'm a little happy. I'm kind of at a birthday party. Well, it's about to start, but not until 5 p.m. here in Danish time. So we good. But yeah. Anyways, but this graph that you made, I think, is just very convincing because it's not a couple of random points. Them being on an almost straight line on a log chart shows that they're able to keep that percentage, the BDC yield growth percentage. There is no diminishing return, is what it's showing. And when if you can do a high BDC yield, and they have the second best track record in the space after strategies. Compound interest is an absolute beast, and strategy. Dylan and Simon are able to kill it on that, and that's why that, dare I say it, without saying anything, that line does intersect the strategy line. But why don't I just comment on that, actually, as I was hinting earlier, and I mean, I know you are, good morning, James, that you're completely focused on Metaplanet now, and I think there's a very good reason for that. The execution, the yield, the currently low MNAV, however, still an MNAV above strategies, which gives it an advantage of having more accretion in the dilution of the shares, right? It
Mm-hmm.
helps the BDC yield, which is the gradient on this slope of BDC per share chart, steeper. Then it's positive that it is higher for Metaplanet, and it's higher than strategies, and that's a good thing, and it's still low enough to be, I think, very attractive entry point. Have you given much thought to Adam Back also is talking about? I saw him started talking about it last week or something. Instead of only talking MNAV, he's talking months to cover.
Yes.
Basically, for how long do they have to keep this? Correct me if I'm wrong here, but for how long do they have to keep this current yield ongoing to actually grow their Bitcoin holdings into the current evaluation, which is a at a is a killer KPI for Metaplanet right now compared to strategy. What's your thoughts?
I love it, and I want to model some of that out. I think there's some. I want to handicap it a little bit, so I'm not like too bullish, and uh, I want to. I'm not sure the best sort of simple equation to do, but I have some ideas. But anyway, yeah, like trying to think of a good analogy. Thinking of an analogy on the air is probably not the best thing, but I'll give it a go. So like if let's say you're in a town and there's only one house for sale, and it's for sale for 500K.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's worth 500K, but the owner won't sell it for less than 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like there's no other real estate. This is it, right? This is the game. So if you know that house, if you have it on good authority, maybe Walmart is going to buy the property or something in the future. You have it on good authority that that's going to gain, 50 or 100% or 200% in value, over the next year, over the next 2 years, whatever it is, that it's going to actually overshoot, even though you're paying triple what the raw value, what the book value of that house is. It doesn't matter because the rate of growth is so insane that, that's going to flip if you hold it for a certain amount of time. And then it's just a question of how much time. And the way that I view Metaplanet is it's trading around a 3M NAV.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they'll, in a couple of years, and let's just say 2 to 3 years, I think that they have a very good chance of 10xing to 20xing their current Bitcoin per share.
Yep.
Which is another way of saying, gaining against the premium that you're paying now. So I might be paying, of course you're overpaying. You're overpaying for strategy. If you're just looking at the book value, if you're just concerned with today's price, what you could get, then yes, you're overpaying. But these whole the whole thing is yield. The whole game is yield, especially for these smaller companies. Strategy is doing a lot more interesting things to kind of fortify that that yield moat, and I think keep a strong, let's say 2 to 3 MNAV for years and years. It's just my intuition about what they're doing. I don't know that much about some of their new products actually, but I think that's sort of what they're doing. For these smaller companies, it's just a game of how fast can you, what MNAV does the market give you? And then are they going to give you enough high MNAV consistently and consistently high volume so that you can keep the machine going and people don't just look at the next hot ticker, kind of like that meme with the guy that's walking with the one woman and then he turns around and, looks at the other woman that's walking the other way. So, I mean, yes, I mean, there's tons of reasons why I'm excited about this, but 3M nav to me, other people may say, well, you could buy 3 times as much Bitcoin worth. You're paying 3 times the book value for these shares. It's like, yeah, sure, but I'm paying at a discount to what it will be in the future, at a serious discount to what it'll be in the future.
Yep.
So they're just going to keep rolling and increasing that Bitcoin per share significantly. I mean, they've increased it. Bitcoin per share, they've increased 2.7 fold this year, or sorry, they've multiplied it 2.7 fold. They've increased 170% since January 1st.
Right.
So they're blowing their own estimations. I mean, their goal was to have 10,000 Bitcoin by the end of this year. My prediction about a week ago was July 16th they would hit 10,000. Now it looks like it might even happen late June. Like it's pretty crazy. So,
but since I bought it 10 days ago, the yield like they've gone from 5,000 to 6,700. It could happen before summer, or before late summer, whatever. And another way to look at it is, yes, the MNAV 3 means you're paying 3 times compared to the Bitcoin there, but from when they started, April last year, if I look at that graph now, when they started with 100 Bitcoin, now they have 6,700, right? So sure, the people investing back then, let's say that was an MNAV 3, they paid as if there was 300 Bitcoin. So I should just go out and buy the Bitcoin instead of buying the stock. But not only did they reach 300 Bitcoin, they reached 6,700. And the beauty of this graph climb is just how it's that growth in Bitcoin holdings is so much on that line. So they're just keeping that exponential growth because it's a luck chart. So it's I would say Metaplanet is a super compelling case, and I understand why it's the only thing you're investing in right now. I completely understand that. It's not where I'm at, but I've taken yeah, definitely, I have from my little size definitely invested a fair bit in Metaplanet because I absolutely believe in the case and the outlook here. And just like I got family and friends into strategy back in 2021, that same thing is going to happen with Metaplanet now. And I've been speaking with friends, some of who I know are watching this, and what I'm seeing now, and I'm sure you're not surprised, you're an example of it yourself, is that there are strategy investors now that are moving funds from strategy to Metaplanet, actually.
yeah, it's interesting. There's some of this may not matter. Maybe the degree it's happening is insignificant, but it's still interesting that people like MSTY, and overall it's probably good for strategy.
Mhm.
But one thing that happens, at least the way I think about it, is when you have an ETF like that sells covered calls,
Mhm.
it does kind of, to me at least, it saps a little bit of the volatility out of the market, so it comes at a
Right.
price. Like, so you get more
Right.
attention, more money in some of those sort of long term positions probably that they have under the hood, but
Right.
you're constantly selling volatility, which there has to be a buyer on the other end. So people wonder why IV is lower and stuff. And certainly part of it is that there's covered call ETFs that are popping up. So there's going to be some sort of equilibrium there. And it's finding that now. That's just kind of my thought. One interesting thing is that there's actually, some people, and I've kind of joked like, okay, I mean, I see this as 100x and beyond eventually, but in sort of like a 5-year time frame,
Mhm.
as long as Bitcoin does its part. If Bitcoin can do a 5x in 5 years, I think that Metaplanet can do a 20x in their Bitcoin per share. So even with the dilution, they could do a 20x in their Bitcoin per share in 5 years. I don't think that's going to be a problem. And combine a 5x and a 20x, and you're at 100x. So I've kind of half joked with people like, hey, you could take your MSTY dividends and put it in Metaplanet, and you already like how big the dividends are. Okay, see how much you like them when you 100x those divvies. Like, yeah, you might have to wait for it, but like it's insane because it's already such a huge dividend, and then to be able to add 2 zeros to whatever that number is, if this thesis is right, and that's a big if. Like, I'm throwing that out. Like, obviously I'm a believer in this. I'm sincere about what I'm saying and about my feelings about it and the analysis, but it's projecting anything into the future is obviously really, really hard. That's another reason why I like this log chart, is like, it's easier to project when you have a really, really clean graph with a lot of data points. And Metaplanet gives us that. So, I mean, I think last night they announced like a $15 million bond or something. And they'll be able to buy, roughly another 150 Bitcoin. If that's going to put them close to 7,000 right there. I thought they would end this month around
Give me that
6,500
again.
when they were at 5,000.
Climb.
Um,
Let me have that again, because they're 6,700 right now. They just bought a ton. Like
yep.
BTC yield 25% since I got it, or even 30%, 34%, I guess, since I bought Metaplanet 10 days ago, which is twice of strategy shield for the year. Say again, what they're raising money right now. What are we looking at?
So the yield, since they had 5,000, the Bitcoin holdings have gone up like 34-35%, I guess. The yield, I would have to look, but it's probably 20 something,
Oh
around
wait,
20
no, you're right.
because
My bad. Of course.
but that's still I think Strategy's yield year to date is probably around 14%. So like I say, they're playing a different game. They're 2 orders of magnitude larger. So it's kind of hard to compare everything. So I don't want people to think that I'm like unfair to Strategy about this stuff. They're just a very different size machine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're $15 million of debt to buy Bitcoin, and since Bitcoin's about 100K, they'll be able to buy about another 150 Bitcoin just with that. Aside from all the share issuance that they're
Mhm.
doing. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure, but I think that they just pay that debt off with future share sales, which help
Right.
them in a couple of ways. They can take advantage of higher, and MNAV isn't like high, but it's still high enough that accretive dilution works really, really well. So they can keep that machine going and do multiple different things at once that allow the share price to breathe. Allow MNAV to breathe quite a bit, I think. So
Hmm.
yes, they
So
should be. I mean, they should be at 7,000 very soon. So
yeah. So there's two things I really want to touch upon. I think it's important for people to know. I mean, well, it's not, but I guess doesn't matter what I think. But I have a lot of faith and believe in strategy. I own strategy. I'm not planning to sell any strategy. Um, but currently, like, future allocations is going to Metaplanet because of this trajectory and the execution, the track record, and because therefore I do believe that it's gonna grow the share price a lot faster. As if strategy is not doing it fast. It's been the best performing stock out of globally, what, 60,000 or more stocks publicly traded. Um, they have been the best, but just Metaplanet seems to be on track to be to be doing better for the short future, foreseeable future. But one thing I want to touch about, I want to hear your thoughts on that. um, I have and I did an episode, a couple of episodes back on MST on Mondays. I did an episode solely focused on, and thank you to the 1159 live viewers. It's split on YouTube and mostly on X. Thank you guys for watching in. I know it's early in on at least on the West Coast when people are working. But wait, where was I going with that? Um, I did an episode a few episodes back on Strife, how I believe that the latest product from Strategy, which is a strict fixed income product, it yields $10 dividend paid out on 4 quarters, so two and a half, two and a half, two and a half, two and a half, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's trading below the $100 nominal value. It trades about, wait, let me just go and have a look at it. It trades at $97. So the effect, whoa, well, that has gone up today by 2%. So these products are picking up from Strategy. So the effective yield right now is 10.3% on that. That is the first Bitcoin related product ever that is targeting the $300 trillion global bond market. So if once they get a credit rating for Strife, which opens up massive floodgates of capital, this tiny less than 1 billion equity fixed income, if that picks up, it will also be the first time ever that there's money flowing into Bitcoin also during a crash, a correlation, a potential bear market that just does not care for 2 seconds about the price of Bitcoin, right? One of the reasons I think we have had in the 4-year cycle these prolonged 1-year bear markets is now like all Bitcoin buying stops because now people panic, number go down, people get nervous, especially the ones that don't study what they bought. And there's a lot of those. And that kind of like, extends the bear market. But the fixed income bond buyers, they don't care about the price of Bitcoin. The companies or people buying, fund managers buying Strife, they don't care about Bitcoin. Bitcoin can go from 200,000 to 20,000. It's not, I don't think that's going to happen, but it could. And they still just want that 10% yield or 10.5% effective yield on Strife. And once they get a credit rating, those floodgates will open. So why am I saying that? Well, the point is that might just mitigate a 1-year bear market completely. That's what I'm talking about in that episode, and that's why I am personally keeping an eye on the volume of Strife, which is something that they likely will get. They'll be able to do ATM on that soon at the market share selling. So that might be able to just like destroy the bear market, which is great. But also the reason I'm bringing it up, if we're going back to the graph here, so Strategy is the orange line. Once they get credit ratings on Strike and Strife, they may be able to pick up that BTC yield again, which means that the two lines of, we're not talking about what that means, but the two lines of Metaplanet and Strategy then maybe would not intersect. That doesn't mean that Metaplanet won't grow faster. I think the execution we're looking at there from Japan is phenomenal, and it's I think they'll continue to outperform, which is great. It's great for Metaplanet, great for Metaplanet shareholders. What's your feedback on that? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the 4-year Bitcoin cycle used to be largely just based on the halving, just the mining, the selling pressure there. Is it 1,800 Bitcoin per day, 900 Bitcoin per day, 450. So the number goes down in Bitcoin per day that are produced on average, but the the dollar amount tends to go up because Bitcoin tends to do more than a double every 4 years. So that's kind of perpetuated the 4-year cycle because, there's less Bitcoin that they're selling, but Bitcoin's so much, it more than doubles in price, so it offsets the halving. Well, now you have the BlackRock ETF and the Fidelity ETF, and then now you have, Strategy, Metaplanet, all these other companies that that are one-way streets for Bitcoin, and TradFi doesn't work in 4-year cycles. So the
Mhm.
more that TradFi envelops Bitcoin, like it or not, there's no way to really prevent, good luck trying to algorithm your way out of people being able to do that. If anyone can hold it, then companies can hold it, and then, nation states can hold it, and it just gets, it gets it's going to be part of the system.
Mhm. Yeah.
If it has value anyway. So that's happening. Well, yeah, I mean, TradFi doesn't do 4-year cycles, so I think, things are getting repriced because of the limited supply, and that's going to continue happening, forever. Essentially, as long as there's something that you can compare it to that you price it in, and that other thing that you compare it to is constantly being diluted, then Bitcoin value just keeps going up. So if you're pricing it in dollars and they keep making more dollars, but they're not really making more Bitcoin. I mean, almost 20 of the 21, I think, have been mined, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so, uh, yeah. So the average amount that's been lost per day through the history of Bitcoin is probably higher than the amount that are mined per day. If I had to guess, I'm not sure, but
Right.
um, on the average day. So it's going up. I think the 4-year cycle doesn't happen. I think the products like what MicroStrategy is doing, I think you're right. Like those products, I don't know a ton about them, but they'll probably help. Um, those income products will probably help in a lot of ways with things. I think there will probably be a leverage washout that happens. I'm not sure. I certainly am not sure how it'll happen. I don't know if the Bitcoin treasury companies will be part of how that occurs or not. Um, but I think that strategy is constantly making themselves safer with a lot of these products.
Yeah. So you bring something up there that I think is really, really interesting because I'm a believer in the 4-year cycle, but as I said in that video, and the concept that I mentioned before, if Strife really kicks off, forget about 1-year bear market, then it won't happen. Because Bitcoin's at 2 trillion, and Strategy has a product that is superior in a 300 trillion dollar market. So if they start selling a lot of Strike, and that dollar for dollar is going straight into Bitcoin, bear market is just like it's not happening anymore. Um, if it depends how much it picks up. I'm not saying it's all glory from now on, because I could see I could see trouble on the horizon as well. As you mentioned, it's not going to come from so far. Strategy right now, the the Bitcoin they have on the balance sheets are unencumbered. They're not put up for collateral. Strategy is not forced to sell any of their Bitcoin, even though if the price of Bitcoin goes down, there's no margin call for Strategy. You know, the price of Bitcoin has to be viciously subdued for longer than physically possible. I think like 5 years for them to get in any kind of trouble. Like it's just not. I don't see it cannot happen, more or less. I think not financial advice. It's only financial entertainment. And by the way, if you do like the financial entertainment, feel free to like and subscribe and share with a friend. But so I don't see leverage right now at all being a problem within any of the leverage Bitcoin equities like Strategy, Metaplanet, and all the new ones popping up in US, which I want to quickly also talk about with you the last 5 minutes we have. What I'm seeing is people leveraging up. I opened up yesterday margin on my Fidelity account. Um, and I want to stay very safe. But I've also, learned from mistakes, previously. it's very easy for people to get carried away and start leveraging up so much that when the bull market really starts getting steep, and then there's a blow off top, and then there's just like a normal correction of, smack in the face 20%, which happens all the time, 20, 25%. But when enough leverage has been built up because of euphoria, which the leveraged Bitcoin equities that we're talking about is definitely helping, then there will be people that are going to get margin called, and they're going to be forced to sell their assets. They're going to be forced to sell their leveraged Bitcoin equities, and some will be forced to sell Bitcoin, and then it's an avalanche you just can't stop. And it kind of seems like that it's this mental game, it's this psychology, it's greed playing in, where it's hard to avoid, it seems, right? So it's going to be interesting it's always interesting to see how the price of Bitcoin in this cycle plays out, but it's going to be very interesting to see on this one. Personally, I'm exiting all types of leveraged products in October. That would be in line with the 4-year cycle. That would be the most likely, not saying it's happening, but the most likely month of a peak. Again, it could be completely offset by Strife and the rest of these LBEs being so successful that it's to the moon forever. I'm not saying that we're going to have, but to be on the safe side, all leverage is being closed in October for my own sake. What do you think about that? What's your thoughts on people leveraging up and potentially creating a more than like a normal correction kind of avalanches into a bear market because just people went too degen?
Yeah, so I did it in 2020, 2021,
Me too.
and I paid the
Me
price
too.
in 2022. Yeah, I had some in Celsius and Voyager, and my heart was in the right place. I wanted more money, right? So, no, it's the idea of being able to earn something like 5% on your Bitcoin is something that if you're just borrowing and leveraging on like the personal level, it certainly can end in catastrophe. When strategy figures out ways to earn 5, 10, 20% a year essentially on their Bitcoin holdings, however you want to think of it, but whether you think of it as Bitcoin yield or future yield potential on their holdings or whatever, that's a much different system, and it largely seems to be able to shield Bitcoin as it's a one-way street. And I've posted, I have my own views on that, which aren't super popular, but
They're
like
usually
if
good
MNAV ever
opinions, and
goes,
they're
yeah.
usually high value, high signal opinions if they're not just being accepted by everyone.
Well, yeah, I kind of wish one of these companies would start up and like the market just gives them no love for some reason, and they end up with like a 0.5 MNAV for like too long, and like nobody buys them because of some issues or something, and then they reverse the trade and they sell Bitcoin and buy back shares, which would increase Bitcoin per share.
Yep.
So I mean, you can if you're a company, you can arbitrage either end of that, but it's like it's just a no to have the conversation. So a lot of people don't like talking about it, and I might be wrong about it. I think I like the idea of a company being willing to arb
Yeah.
in
So,
that way, but obviously that brings potential volatility and stuff in the
which
future.
is
So
good though. That's vitality.
yeah, I mean it should be. People don't like it because it could potentially short term, crash Bitcoin price by double digits or something. But who cares to me? I mean, it's not going to like damage the network or anything, and it's this thing. Bitcoin's battle tested. Like I don't think people should be afraid of leveraged washouts. You want them in a sustained growth play. You want the leveraged washouts. Every couple of years or whatever it is. So
Well,
you need to
thanks.
shake people out. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks to that normal human emotion of greed, leverage will build up naturally. It just
Yeah.
will. You can't avoid it. And if it's not washed out once a while, it will keep growing. It will be unchecked to the extent that nothing, like the smallest spark, and then you get the washout. It's just, and it just historically happens to have been very beautifully and aligned with a 4-year cycle. And when I say beautiful, it's also me taking, anytime I'm helping anyone else sort of on their investments, I've it's been conservative enough to like not lose the money ever in any way. But like when it comes to my own money, I'm more playful and have zero problem with risk. So I use the word beautiful, but I did get slapped hard across the face at end of 21 because I thought we were going higher than 69,000 in 21. So I uh, took some heavy losses there.
Yeah.
Lesson learned, right? All right, so I got about like 3, 4, 5 minutes left. Really glad to have you on, Climb. You have phenomenal insights. You've done the work. It's literally proof of work, as we say in Bitcoin. You've put in the work. You've done the research that shows what a phenomenal investment Metaplanet is compared to other LBEs, and that's no bad mouthing strategy, which invented this, and Sailor is killing it, and the products he's launching, it's amazing. Hats off for Sailor, obviously, and his team. Um, One thing I also want to talk to you about before we close off is it's been interesting to see now, um, especially from an investor's point of view, because I'm an investor, right? I got cold storage, Bitcoin, multi-sig, geographically distributed, hard to get hold of. That's my main thing, but I like the leveraged Bitcoin equities because they do accumulate. And grow my purchasing power. I measure everything in Bitcoin, and they go up measured in Bitcoin because they can tap into the traditional finance markets and their lack of yield to buy more Bitcoin for the shareholders of Strategy, Metaplanet, etc. But in US, we've seen a slew of, let's see if I can remember them all. CEP, which is going to become Capital 21. There is Asset, ASST, ticker symbol, and then there's Kindly, KDLY. Mentioning that one, as a point to what you were mentioning earlier, I did see David Bailey say today, which I fully support, and I could hear you do as well, that if the share price of a company that they invest in goes below MNAV1, they would sell Bitcoin to buy shares. And yes, I can see what you're saying. That might hurt the price of Bitcoin, but if you're a Bitcoiner, you should love the free market, right? Like that's what we say we do. So stick to your word. Love the free market. Um, and I can see as an investor looking at these things, and for the money that I decided to play with, I do look at these. I invest in Strategy, and then I invested in Metaplanet and have like a tiny position in Semler, which I don't know how long I'm going to keep. But the challenge they have in US, I can see when I look at it as an investor. Okay, so there's three big ones now: the CEP ticker, the ASST ticker, the KDLY ticker, and then there's a bunch of others. Semler, GameStop is a sleeper. Did they buy Bitcoin? Didn't they? Fold, and others. See, some people have been saying Strategy has a monopoly. They don't. It's not about how many Bitcoin you have. What's interesting for you as investor, as me and as investor, is um, how fast in Bitcoin terms can I grow my investment? And obviously, it all comes with risk. The lowest risk, the most pristine asset is Bitcoin and cold storage, right? So we're talking about something. All investments have risk. But when I look at these different ones, what I'm realizing now is that in US, the last thing any LBE has is a monopoly because they're all competing to raise funds for their leveraged Bitcoin equity, where Metaplanet essentially has a monopoly on raising funds for a leveraged Bitcoin equity. And I think that as an investor, I like that. It's one of the reasons I think they have a significantly higher BTC yield, which gives me a significantly faster growth in the share price. And I like that as an investor. Um, so, so I don't know. I personally feel that's the dynamic playing out right now. And to me, that makes Metaplanet really interesting. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, competition is going to get vicious, and like I think I posted yesterday, like if if strategy does well, that's good for Metaplanet.
You're an idiot.
It's good because the higher it trades in MNAV terms, the higher you can justify that, people that trade between things. If MicroStrategy is trading at a 2 MNAV and Metaplanet is trading at a 3, and MicroStrategy goes to a 2.5, what do you think Metaplanet goes to? A 3.5 or a 4 maybe, because there's a lot of people that look at these ratios, look at the ratio to the yield that the products provide, and that justifies, certain premiums, at least, to a lot of investors. A lot of the newcomers, it's interesting, a lot of the newcomers will start off with like potentially 10 times the Bitcoin that, something like that, Metaplanet has now, and they'll have zero chart history of accumulating Bitcoin. They'll just do it in one lump. So like a lot of people don't realize, GameStop is a 12 billion or whatever market cap. They're like, six times bigger or something than Metaplanet, and they'll make a big splash and people get excited, but they're not a tiny stock anymore. They took advantage of the pump years ago. They diluted the crap out of their shares, which for the good of the company, they did it, I suppose, So like, I'm not talking, it'll be great if they get in. Everyone getting in helps everyone else. It's a positive feedback loop sort of idea. But there's certainly competition for my money. There's competition for your money. They have to tell a story. It has to be sustainable. You have to trust them. You have to see track record. And so there's a lot of people at the starting line right now that over the next couple of months are going to really start doing things, and they'll be competing for dollars, and we'll see what the market does with that. I mean, I hope they do well. Obviously, I hope the one that I'm in does the best, because I like there's so many stars that align that I really, really like where it is, especially at this point in time. But I wish everyone well. There's a lot of healthy competition, so it's going to make everybody better. If someone figures something out, everyone else is going to copy them, as much as they can. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And I do want to add, because you're very kind, and saying there's a chance for a 10x, and it's actually 100x because it's 10x Bitcoin and 10x Metaplanet treasury. And I would like to say that I do think that Metaplanet actually can do a 10,000x by latest 2050. Because I think Bitcoin will do 100x in that period, and probably a 200x. And I think that Metaplanet will be able to do a 50 to 100x of the treasury they have. And once they don't have that, just like I've said previously for strategy, their final evaluation, once, let's say, they can't run the playbook anymore because fiat currency is dead, well, the balance sheets they have will put them in a position of being the biggest financial conglomerates in the world, and they'll be able to generate income on that. So the price of LBEs, leveraged Bitcoin equities, will be basically the balance sheet plus whatever premium their money generating capabilities will be on top of that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's so it's going to be a different. Right now is a very special point in time, when you can have a smaller company that can have this huge advantage, and huge excitement, and all that attention provides the MNAV, provides the volume, provides the ability for the accretive dilution to really work. Um, in 10 years, you're not just going to be able to see something like Metaplanet and 100x your money in a few years. Like, I don't think that that's, aside from like, yeah, Bitcoin being a huge part of the gains, the game is going to be very different in 5 or 10 years. Who knows what it'll be? It's going to
Uh-huh.
evolve, but yeah, I mean, all these companies are helping each other, and um, it's exciting to kind of see how the charts, like, where are the charts going to stop? The accumulation, where does that stop? And like you say, the premium will largely just be uh, a more methodical analysis. I mean, there's going to be papers written on this stuff, if not already, on MNAV, serious scientific work of how to compare things, potential. But yeah, I mean, something like strategy could, be 2MNAV indefinitely, essentially. And I think a lot of the other companies may sort of, if they're above that now, will kind of dissipate to that once they're that size, let's say.
Yeah, full agreement from my side. We kind of reached the end. I have to go join the birthday here. Can you say a little about, because you're an active part in the Metaplanet Madness community on X, um, where I'm a member myself. I think currently there's 2,700 members, 2,800 members. Is there anything you want to say about that, or about your work? People can follow you on X on @actualclimber, which is right there on the screen, which I recommend. Anything else you want to finish the show with, and also please do come back. I'd love to continue this conversation and look at the numbers as they develop. I am personally now bullish and excited about both strategy and Metaplanet. Those are my main leverage Bitcoin equities plays. But any final words, Climb, that you want to put in there?
The community and the Discord have grown like crazy. The other podcast with Peter that's on Saturdays, so we'll be doing episode 2 this Saturday. I think it's noon Pacific. But yeah, just the growth is insane. People are really excited, and a lot of people are adding to analysis, and I'll keep updating charts and everything, for as long as I can. So yeah, it's exciting, and there's a lot of cool competition, and it's a really exciting conversation.
I couldn't agree more. I think it came out of left or whatever it's called, left
Left
field.
field, yeah. Yeah.
Was very excited and still am about strategy, and definitely I think there's an upside to Strike and Strife that most people don't realize how wild that could get, and how it could reignite the BTC yield of strategy. But Metaplanet right now is just the growth and everything is phenomenal, and I'm very happy to have gotten some stocks, and looking forward to have this conversation with you and with Peter and everyone else in the community. See how things go the rest of this year and the next couple of decades. I So this was the 20th episode of MSG on Mondays. It used to be called the previous, like the name of the company, Mondays, but then they changed the name. And then I wanted to make it the ticker symbol, because otherwise it's a generic name in terms of, you know what I mean? I don't want to say the previous name. You know what I mean, I think. But I am gonna post on X later today or tomorrow. I really want Dylan and Simon from Metaplanet to come on this show as the next episode, because that will be the epic episode 21, which is a special number for us in Bitcoin. And if they will do so, I will rename my show to MSG Metaplanet Mondays. So guys, if you're watching this, if you want to see Simon and Dylan coming on episode 21 and have me rebrand the show, hey, maybe I should even get finally a logo that fits not only the my events business but also the actual show. I mean, I'm doing this for fun, yeah, and so that's why, some things like that. I just want to have the conversations. But yeah, if you guys, if you want to see Dylan and Simon potentially on episode 21, help me look at my X, that's my X account, and give that some love, some like, and retweet or whatever. if it gets enough momentum, maybe they'll see it, and that means maybe they'll come on. I'll be available 24/7 to have those guys on, and I think it could be epic to have an episode 21 with Simon and Dylan from Metaplanet, and I'll rebrand the show. What do you think, Climb? You think we can make that happen? You got some pull.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a coins flip chance there, so I think there's a decent chance. And yeah, thanks for having me on. This is exciting. So
Yeah. And do you think I can interest you in coming back and talking talking Metaplanet again?
yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right. So on that note, and just thanks to the chat for thinking that that's a great idea. If we could make that happen, it would be awesome. Wow, there's several people thinking that's a great idea. That's awesome. I hope so. I hope I get some love. Look on my X, and when I tweet that out, and then if we can get some momentum, that'd be super fun and great to have that conversation. And Climb, I look forward to have you back here. We're hanging out in the X community that's called Metaplanet Madness, and yeah, to the moon.
To the moon. Sounds
To
great.
the moon. All right. See you on the next one.